with art rests in two things. One, in the fact that most pieces of art that are made are created out of things that look, feel, or sound nothing like the finished piece. The second thing is that these pieces, the art that we see, sparks emotion. Whatever this emotion may be, it may be awe, it may be joy, it may be disgust, it may be confusion, whatever it is, it still counts because you have felt something. But my biggest question when it comes to this emotion factor is that the emotion that you feel, should it be that the artist wanted you to feel? Or should it be an emotion that comes out as a reaction to the piece or your reaction to what you are seeing? This is a question that I don't think that there's an answer to. And even if there's an answer, I clearly haven't found one. Hi guys, it's Maya here, and welcome to Vaartalap, a podcast where we talk about anything related to art, artists, creativity, and anything else that I want to talk about. Today, I'm going to be talking about this absurd and seemingly unanswerable question that I've had, which is which interpretation or meaning of a piece of art is the right meaning. Now, most of you are going to say, Maya, art doesn't have one meaning, it means different things to different people. But let me explain how I got here. So, my art class was very boring in the initial years. Boring in the sense that what we did and what we learned wasn't all that thought-provoking and creative. We used to create art based on these module books. And these module books had levels. We used to simply copy what's given in the book, color it in, and that was pretty much it. Within a few years, all the kids who had been with me in the class finished all the levels or they simply left class. And I became the eldest child out there. It got to the point where the kids around me started calling me Didi. So, in order to save myself the embarrassment, I started sitting in my teacher's cabin. One day, while I was sitting in her cabin, she was talking about these paintings that she had seen at this exhibition. I still remember I would sketch for 2 minutes, nod my head, then look up and say, or just any sort of reaction that would make her believe that I was engaged in the conversation. And this would go on in an infinite loop. Of course, I was paying attention, but not 100%. Kahin, there was some kami. In the middle of her monologue, I interrupted her. Bold move, I know. And said, Ma'am, it's so cool na how a single piece of art has so many interpretations. Everyone looks at this one piece and all of these people have different reactions. She stopped talking and stared at me. And then she said, the only interpretation that a piece has is what the artist wanted you to interpret. All else is rubbish. And that came to me as a shock. Because every time I'd made something and shown it to my father, he had taken out a completely different meaning of the entire piece. He'd say, I see how you've used XYZ to depict this, or something else for something else. And altogether, the meaning of what I had created would change. And honestly, I would be surprised. I'd be like, Arey yaar, why didn't I ever think of this? Wait, but what he's saying is true. But this is not what I had in mind when I was making it. So, my teacher's words didn't really make sense when I put this into the context. But what was really interesting is that a few years down the line, I realized that there was some truth in my teacher's words. Because at the end of the day, art is a means of communication. And if what I'm trying to say hasn't really reached you through my piece, then I have failed in some way. But how could someone possibly interpret my piece exactly how I wanted them to interpret it? Now, I've been taught that when in doubt, go to your teachers, ask them. But what happens when you don't see eye to eye with your teacher? I never got to discuss this topic with my teacher because I knew that 2 hours of class weren't enough for a nuanced debate on something so subjective. A few weeks later, I found myself at this party where I was sitting with this distant cousin. You know those cousins who are so distant that you probably can't trace or even understand the relation, but you've been told that you're cousins, so you don't question it. So, this cousin of mine was graduating from design school, and he was showing me this zine that he had designed as a part of his final year project. I was eager to look at it because I'd admired his aesthetic sense for a long while. In his zine, he had used his colors and lines very deliberately. In fact, he used only 3 to 4 colors, but he still ended up expressing a wide range of emotions. His illustrations were accompanied by little pieces of poetry that he had written himself. With every page, I remember being taken through a range of emotions: rage, misery, regret, and whatnot. But the problem was that I didn't understand what exactly was going on. I felt the emotions, of course. I understood the context, but things were still up in the air. He started talking about his project, and I became even more confused. Looking at my puzzled face, he went ahead and began to explain everything to me. And then he bluntly gave me the best piece of advice that I've received. He said, "Maya, with every piece that you create, articulate. Write down what it means. Write down what you're trying to say. Write down what you want people to feel. Whatever it is, write it down. Articulate. Because if you, as an artist, can't explain your own piece, what's the point of creating it?" That night, while we were coming back home, I remember sitting in the back and realizing how much clarity of thought it requires to actually make something that people interpret in a manner that does justice to what you want to say. I had never thought of what I wanted to depict and what I wanted people to feel. And honestly speaking, I still don't know what I want to show half the time. I usually take to the paper or canvas or whatever when I see something and think, I have to make this. ये तो बनाना ही है. It's the urge to put this thought, this idea down on paper. That's what has governed my artistic expression until now. But now, meaning has become a little more important to me because I feel a little helpless and clueless. I can't perhaps keep on making things just for the sake of making it or just because it looks nice. There needs to be a reason, and thus the cluelessness. Whatever I create is a way for me to communicate. And I don't think that I can communicate anything worthwhile without knowing what I have to say. But I think there's a sweet spot between knowing what I want to communicate and letting the brush lead my way. And also, art isn't just communication now. It's so much more. So obviously, there is a room for interpretation. And there is a room for individual experiences becoming a part of someone's interpretation. But I have noticed that when I articulate and when I have an idea of what this feeling is that I want to put on paper, That's when people tend to look at the piece through the lens that I wanted them to look at it through. It has become a little more important for me to get across my message to people. That's the whole reason I've started writing words or just these random paragraphs next to my work. Sometimes even the names of songs that made me want to paint. And it helps me understand my own pieces better. But as a matter of fact, I don't really know what they mean. And if I don't know what they mean, how can I say that what you interpret or feel is right or wrong? And anyways, no matter what I create, everyone will look at it in a different light. Will you exactly know what's this feeling that I wanted to put down if I didn't tell you? And even if I do explain it to you, will you agree with me? Will we see eye to eye? Probably not, because we're different people. We've had different experiences. We look at the world differently. And I think that's the beauty of it, that we look at the same thing and we feel completely different things. Even now, Papa takes out 20 different meanings of things that I make. But at least now I know where the thought of making this piece came from. Thank you guys for listening. This was the second episode of Vaartalap. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Do let me know what you thought about it. This is your host, Maya, signing off.